There's a moment in every long family argument when the silence stops being peaceful and starts being permanent. That moment, for the House of Windsor, may have already arrived. And what has brought it to the surface, what has cracked open the polished facade of a monarchy that spent the last year carefully rebuilding its public image, is a single planned trip, a family visit, a father bringing his wife and children back to the country where he was born, to stand on a stage in Birmingham and talk about wounded soldiers and sporting glory. That is all it is on paper. But nothing involving Prince Harry and the British royal family has ever been just what it appears on paper, and this moment is no different. Because underneath the Invictus Games announcement, underneath the talk of royal accommodation and one-year countdowns and family reunions, there is a war going on. And it is not the war between Harry and the press, or Harry and the institution, or even Harry and his past. It is the war between two brothers, one who became a king in waiting and one who walked away, and it has no ceasefire in sight. Let us go back to the beginning of how we got here, because context matters enormously in a story this tangled. When Prince Harry and Meghan Markle stepped back from royal duties in January 2020, the official line from the palace was careful, measured, and deliberately vague. The couple, it was said, wished to become financially independent while continuing to support the Queen. They would split their time between the United Kingdom and North America. It was framed as an arrangement, not a rupture. But the months that followed made clear that what had happened was not an arrangement at all. It was a departure. A clean break, executed messily with wounds on every side. The couple moved to California. The media coverage intensified. And then came the Oprah interview, the Netflix documentary, the memoir. With each revelation, the distance between Harry and the institution he had left behind did not merely hold, it widened. And at the center of that widening distance, largely silent but never neutral, stood Prince William. William and Harry were once described, by their own father, by palace insiders, by the global press, as the closest of brothers. The two boys who walked behind their mother's coffin through the streets of London. The two young men who stood together at her memorial, their shared grief visible to the entire watching world. The Wales boys, the heir and the spare. For decades, that bond was treated as unbreakable, and perhaps it was for a time, but something changed, and whatever that something was, whether it was Meghan's arrival, the structural tension of being the heir versus the one who would never inherit, the accumulated pressure of a life conducted entirely in public, or some private conversation that no one outside the family will ever know, the result is the same. The brothers do not speak. They have not meaningfully spoken, by most accounts, in years. And everything happening in June of 2026, everything being written and said and debated across every platform and publication that covers the royal family, circles back to that single fact. Into this atmosphere, a piece of news arrived that changed the temperature of the entire conversation. Reuters reported in mid-June 2026 that Harry is planning to bring his family to the United Kingdom in July. Not just Harry traveling alone, as he has done for occasional events and legal proceedings over the past few years. The whole family. Meghan, Archie, who is now 7 years old, Lilibet, who is 5, and who was named after the great-grandmother she has barely had the chance to know. The last time this family stood together on British soil was June 2022 at the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. Lilibet had just turned 1. Archie was 3. Now they are children with memories and personalities and opinions of their own, and their grandfather, the King of England, has reportedly not seen them in person since that day. That is not a diplomatic detail. That is a human fact, and it is one that has clearly begun to weigh heavily on King Charles. Because the other piece of news that arrived alongside the Reuters report was this. King Charles has reportedly offered his son's family a royal residence for the duration of the July visit. According to People magazine, the king has extended this offer directly, a gesture so personal and so deliberate that royal watchers immediately understood what it represented. This is not the palace. Managing a situation. This is a grandfather doing what grandfathers do when they have not seen their grandchildren in years and they are acutely aware that time is not guaranteed. Charles has been treated for cancer. He knows this better than most. He reportedly wants Archie and Lilibet in his life before that window closes in a way it cannot be reopened. And so he extended his hand, offered his home, and made clear that whatever the complications, whatever the politics, he wanted his family near him. But here is where the story fractures. Because what King Charles wants and what Prince William will accept are not the same thing. And in the court of 2026, with Charles's health having made the question of succession feel more present than it might otherwise, William's opinion is not merely the preference of a sulking brother, it is the view of the man who will be king. And that view, as reported by outlet after outlet in the days following the Reuters story, is unambiguous. William does not want Harry here. William does not want Meghan here. William is, according to those close to the situation, furious. Not quietly uncomfortable, not diplomatically opposed, but actively, visibly furious. at what he regards as his father's willingness to welcome back the people who, in William's view, damaged the institution and betrayed the family. The specifics of William's reported reaction are striking. One source, cited by the Royalist, described the Prince of Wales as so upset by the news of the planned accommodation offer that he threatened to boycott Sandringham, the beloved royal estate where the family gathers at Christmas, forever if his brother and sister-in-law were invited there. He reportedly skipped the traditional family lunch that follows the Trooping the Color ceremony, the most visible and formal of the summer's royal gatherings, as a direct expression of his anger. These are not the actions of a man who is slightly irritated. These are the actions of a man drawing a line. And the line is clear. William has said, through his actions and through those who speak in his proximity, never, not now, not this way, not while things remain as they are. The question of what exactly things are, what the specific grievances are, which betrayals are the ones that cannot be forgiven, is one that both camps have addressed selectively and publicly for several years now. Harry's memoir, published in late 2022, contained accounts of physical altercations, of feeling sidelined, of being treated differently from his brother within the institution. William has never directly responded to those specific claims, but those around him have made clear that the memoir was experienced as a fundamental act of disloyalty. One royal commentator, the journalist Roya Nika, put it plainly in an interview earlier this year. William is someone who holds a grudge. He chooses sides. If someone picks the other side, he remembers that, and he does not forget easily. The language around William in coverage from multiple sources consistently returns to the same themes: unyielding, hardened, permanent. His position on Harry, the reporting suggests, has not softened over time. If anything, it has calcified. And then there is Meghan. Because any honest accounting of why this rift is so difficult to close has to reckon with the fact that the complications around the Sussex marriage are not purely about what Harry has done. They are also about who Meghan is, how she has been perceived within the institution, and how William feels about her specifically. Multiple sources have suggested over the years that Meghan is a particular sticking point for William, that his objections to Harry's return are inseparable from his objections to Meghan's presence. The accommodation offer, from William's reported perspective, is not just a gesture toward his brother, it is a gesture toward both of them, together, as a couple, and that is something he reportedly cannot accept. Meanwhile, Meghan herself has been doing the careful, deliberate work of managing her own return narrative. Sources close to the couple say she has been determined to make the Birmingham trip happen, that she has taken a considerable interest in the Invictus Games, and that she views the visit as both personally meaningful and strategically important. The visit would be her first return to the United Kingdom, outside of transiting through Heathrow, since the late Queen's funeral in September 2022. That is nearly 4 years. And the reporting on how the British public and press will receive her has been, to put it gently, mixed. Former royal editor Charles Ray, speaking on a podcast, was not gentle at all. He said bluntly that Meghan would be booed, that the British public does not want her there, and that she would struggle to cope with the reception she would receive. Others have reported that Harry has been pressing for assurances that his wife will be treated with basic respect, that she will not walk into a situation in which she is already being cast as the villain before she has even arrived. That request for basic dignity, according to at least one source, has been generating its own friction. The insider described Harry as rubbing people the wrong way within royal circles with a string of requests made on Meghan's behalf. But the same source pushed back on the idea that Meghan is the one driving the agenda, suggesting that the assumption itself is part of the problem, that Harry is only making things worse by being seen to speak for her rather than with her. In any case, the dynamic at play is not simply family members negotiating a visit. It is two people who left, built something else, faced significant setbacks in that something else, and are now returning to a place that does not quite know what to do with them. The public reaction in Britain has been fierce. On social media, in the press, in the opinion columns that have run virtually every week since the Reuters report broke, the responses have ranged from cautious welcome to open contempt. The contempt tends to focus on what critics see as a contradiction at the heart of the planned visit. For years, Harry has argued that it is unsafe to bring his family to the United Kingdom. His legal team, in court filings, argued that without automatic police protection, he does not feel safe. He lost that legal challenge. He told interviewers as recently as 2024 that it would take only one lone actor, radicalized by hostile media coverage, to cause serious harm to his family. And now, without any apparent change to the legal situation, without any confirmed additional security provision from the Home Office, the family is coming. The question that has been asked on platforms and in pubs and in comment sections across the country is simple and pointed. So, was it actually safe all along, or was it being exaggerated? There is no clean answer. The absence of a clean answer is itself a kind of answer. Harry's team would likely say that the situation has evolved, that King Charles's offer of a royal residence changes the security calculus, that the context of a public Invictus Games event is different from a purely private visit. There may be truth in all of that, but the optics remain complicated, and the British public, which has never been particularly forgiving of what it perceives as inconsistency from the Sussexes, has seized on the contradiction. Royalists, who have followed this saga with the kind of tribal intensity that royal coverage tends to generate, have been particularly vocal. They see the return not as reconciliation, but as a maneuver, a way of using the children, who are innocent in all of this, entirely and completely innocent, to force a meeting with Charles that Harry could not achieve through direct request. They see it as using the Invictus Games, a genuine and meaningful charitable project, as a vehicle for something more personal and more political, and they are saying so loudly in every available form. The Invictus Games context matters because it is the one space in which Harry's return makes the clearest kind of unambiguous sense. He founded the Games in 2014 in Britain as a way to honor the service and sacrifice of wounded military personnel. The next Games are scheduled for Birmingham in July 2027, which makes the July 2026 visit a logical one-year-out milestone. There is real work to be done, real events to attend, real veterans whose stories deserve attention and celebration. That dimension of the trip is not manufactured. But in a story this layered, even genuine motivations get filtered through the lens of everything that has come before them. And what has come before them over the course of 6 years is a level of public drama, documented, litigated, and broadcast in extraordinary detail that makes it nearly impossible for any act, however genuine, to be received as simply what it is. The deeper story underneath all the noise is one of time. King Charles is not a young man, and he has been treated for cancer. The nature of his illness and treatment has not been disclosed fully to the public, but the fact of it has changed the atmosphere around the monarchy in ways both subtle and significant. Charles has shown in how he has navigated the Harry situation over the past year that he is operating with a different kind of urgency than the institution might otherwise prefer. He met privately with Harry in September 2025 at Clarence House, a meeting that lasted just under an hour and was the first in-person contact between father and son in 19 months. He has now reportedly offered his home to Harry's family for a July visit. These are not the actions of a king managing a diplomatic relationship. They are the actions of a man who knows that certain things cannot wait, and who is choosing, deliberately and at personal cost within the family dynamic, to prioritize seeing his grandchildren over maintaining the united front that William apparently prefers. Archie is 7. Lilibet is 5. Childhood is the one thing no family gets back. That line, reported in one of the more thoughtful analyses of the situation, cuts through all the politics and the positioning and the tabloid noise and arrives at the thing that is actually true. Whatever one thinks of Harry and Meghan, however one weighs the memoir, the Netflix documentary, the Oprah interview, the legal battles, the years of accusations and counter-accusations, the children did not write any of it. They did not make any of the choices that led to this estrangement. And they are growing up without knowing their grandfather, without knowing the country their father came from, without knowing the family into which they were born in any sustained or meaningful way. That is the cost of this rift as it is currently maintained. And it is a cost that, by all reporting, King Charles has decided he is no longer willing to pay. Whether what happens in July constitutes a genuine first step toward reconciliation, or merely another skirmish in an argument that has never really stopped, will depend entirely on details that have not yet been confirmed. Will Charles appear publicly with Harry at an Invictus event? Will there be any private family time? Any moment in which Archie and Lilibet sit with the grandfather who is reportedly desperate to know them? Will Meghan attend the public events? And if she does, how will she be received? Will William maintain his reported distance? And if he does, will the absence of any contact between the brothers become itself the story that overshadows everything else about the visit? These questions will not be answered in June. They will be answered in July in Birmingham, in the real-time unfolding of events that no press briefing or royal spokesperson has fully controlled in years. What is certain now, as of the last week of June 2026, is the shape of the situation. King Charles is open. Prince William is not. Meghan is determined. Harry is pressing forward. The British public is divided loudly and bitterly between those who want the family healed and those who want the Sussexes to stay in California and stop disrupting a monarchy they chose to leave. Royal commentators are split between those who see the visit as a genuine and hopeful step, and those who see it, in the bluntest possible terms, as a trap, for Charles, for the institution, for everyone involved. One thing that is not in question is William's position. Multiple sources across multiple outlets have confirmed that the planned July visit does not include any meeting between Harry and his brother. William has reportedly shut that door, not left it ajar for a later conversation, not kept it unlocked pending certain conditions. Shut it. The word that keeps appearing in the coverage from commentators, from experts, from those who speak on background from within the palace orbit, is hardened. William's position has hardened. It has been hardening for years. And the July visit, with its public staging and its media attention and its implicit challenge to the image of a unified monarchy, may harden it further. What does it mean for the monarchy, long-term, if these two brothers never reconcile? It means the future King of England will carry this fracture into his reign. It means the institution will spend years managing the existence of a parallel royal narrative, one that operates out of California, that generates its own media coverage, that occasionally intersects with the official story in Birmingham or at legal proceedings in London, and that cannot be fully controlled or contained. It means William will rule over a family story that has a missing chapter, written in public, that everyone can read, but no one can change. That is not ideal for an institution whose entire claim to relevance rests on its ability to project unity, continuity, and the kind of dignified permanence that makes people feel that some things endure. And perhaps that is the real reason why King Charles is pushing for this visit, despite William's anger, despite the complications, despite everything. Not merely because he is a grandfather who loves his grandchildren, though that is surely true, but because he understands, in a way that perhaps only someone who has watched this institution survive centuries of crisis can understand, that the cost of maintaining this particular wound indefinitely is higher than the cost of the discomfort required to begin healing it. The monarchy has survived abdication. It has survived Diana. It has survived Andrew. It will survive Harry. But only if it finds a way to close this chapter rather than letting it run forever, draining legitimacy and attention and goodwill with every passing year. July will be a test. It will not be a resolution. The gap between Harry and William is not the kind of distance that closes over a weekend in Birmingham, however symbolic, but a grandfather seeing his grandchildren, a father bringing his children to the country where he was born, a king extending his home to a son who has been away too long. These things matter. They are the small human acts out of which eventually larger reconciliations sometimes become possible. Whether that possibility exists here, whether William's position ever moves, whether the British public ever finds its way to something other than the partisan fury that has characterized this story for 6 years, none of that is knowable today. What is knowable is that Harry is coming, Meghan is coming, the children are coming, and the family that greets them, or does not, will tell us everything about what the British monarchy actually is right now. Not in ceremony, not in pageantry, but in the private, irreducible, and glamorous reality of people who share blood and cannot agree on what that means.